Hello everybody, this is Global Warming Skeptic here to bring you a brief video discussing the electoral situation again. Now, I've already retracted my previous statement that Trump was going to win because what I thought was going to happen was that Trump's message on trade was going to increase his chances of winning Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Turns out that it did not go quite as well as I hoped, but this video is not really about that. What I'm going to discuss here is just a strange contradiction of national polls versus, if I can get back here, let me see if I can get back so I don't have to just do this right here. Get to the national polls here. I've been fiddling through this. So you see here, Hillary looks like she's got a pretty dominant lead in the 4-man as well as the 2-man polls, 6.9 and 7% respectively. And this just looks like a whitewash at this point, right? But these are national polls. These aren't state by state. Well, some of them do state by state, but they don't really weight anything. But anyhow, let's go to the no toss-ups. And you see the electoral situation does not look as bad. And that's because all the state polls are not showing Trump behind by that much. This one's 8%. But see, Iowa, Trump's holding his lead. Arizona, Trump is still very competitive. And if he were really down by 7% universally, then he'd be losing even many red states. Let's look at Utah. Utah still has Trump absolutely crushing, but you got the 17 here, so that's kind of weighting that a little bit. But see, the electoral situation, it's pretty much down to what I said before. Except for Virginia, you could replace Virginia with Pennsylvania because Trump's not winning Virginia. That's almost certainly. It's too much DC crowd. Richmond, Virginia Beach, a lot of liberals. Newport News, a lot of liberal areas there, especially establishment. It's a moderate state overall, but it's kind of going blue. Pennsylvania, he's down 6.8, but if you look, it seems like this is where the WikiLeaks stuff is having an impact. Because a lot of the WikiLeaks stuff is about the economy, and that's what Pennsylvania's main issue would be, I'd say. Now, you've also got a black population there, and ever since the naughty word scandal, as well as the sexual assault claims, that really crushed him with black people because he's down below 10% at this point, and it's unfortunate because he's doing really well with them, but his support there seems to have tanked. But in Pennsylvania, he's actually getting a comeback here, at least over the last couple days. You had so most of these have them competitive except for Bloomberg. So you got Pennsylvania, you got North Carolina. This is looking a little bit more promising. It seems like the Gary Johnson and Jill Stein collapses are rising both of their numbers. And this was interesting, and I pointed this out in my first one. Who's going to get the third-party votes when the people turn away from them? Because in all these elections, if you look at the numbers, they have I believe, a wiki article, an interesting one that has done poll numbers since like the early 1980s or something. And usually Democrats and third parties are very overrepresented in the polls, and their numbers are tanking. And at least in North Carolina, I think it's going to be a state by state deal. Because there's going to be a lot of states where Hillary Clinton is going to get the Gary Johnson, Jill Stein votes, but there's also going to be a few states that Trump gets them. And North Carolina might be one of those where Trump gets it, because that's what you kind of see happening here. It's kind of close, though, I do got to say that. It might even be a wash who gets them. And in Florida, it also looks not that bad for Trump. Just 3.6, just barely above the typical margins of error. 3.8, 3.12. So it's within, it's just outside of, well, it's inside of 3.8, just above 3.1, 2.3, and then you have 3.7 here. So it's, if you look at the average margin of error, it's actually within that. Now, I'm not positive that that's a valid statistical analysis, but it is what it is. 3.6. And of course, in Ohio, he's winning by 0.7. And again, it's like, even with the tanking of the black vote, it's still super close here, because Ohio's one of those states where it's going red pretty quickly. And in fact, if you look at the Senate race, Portman is blowing out Ted Strickland, and Ted Strickland has a huge reputation in Ohio. I know because he had a reputation when I lived there. And he's just losing badly, and in fact it looks like he has a virtual 0% chance of winning. And Portman's going to take that. And also you got John Kasich, who is super popular in Ohio, and that's influencing this as well. Now, the strange thing is Trump cut ties with Kasich. I don't know if that's a mistake or not, because he needs Ohio. And Kasich is the guy for Ohio, and if you're going to insult their governor, then not sure that politically it's a smart move. It's probably a good move morally, because let's face it, Kasich's been just rotten to Trump. He's been absolutely rotten, trying to hit him viciously, and that's been a lot of this whole election, is Trump is tripping over the establishment Republicans. And the establishment Republicans are pretty much in a very hotly contested election. They got Senate seats, and so they're bailing on Trump because they're afraid they're going to lose their very close races. And politically, I could see that, but again, the GOP can kiss my ass. I still say that, and I still am going to stand by that. Let's look at New Hampshire. I didn't even look at that. See, here's another area where Trump is gaining ground heavily after the WikiLeaks. And that would be an area, because New Hampshire's... Now, Maine, you don't really have a lot of polling data. They only have one poll in the month of October, which, you know, it's 2 votes, so you're not really going to get much. Indiana toss-up, it looks like he's going to win that. Let's look at Georgia. He's still dominating pretty heavily there, especially while we looked at Arizona. It's close. Um, Nevada, just not really enough data. Well, you got 3 polls pretty close, but it's looking very tight there. And New Mexico, you've only got 1 poll that goes into October there. New Mexico is going to be an interesting one because they have it leaning. I guess because it's above 5 points, it's got to lean. But the fact is that with so little data, and New Mexico can go either way, it's gonna be interesting. Let's look at Wisconsin. Not really much of a change. With the 1 poll you got, it's pretty much just a wash there. Michigan, you got 10.7. He's tanked there because, of course, the black vote. That was one of the most complete collapses of a demographic we've seen. Let's just be real here. New York, let's see if there's anything. Nope. She's dominating New York. Let's look at New Jersey. Still the same. A lot of these, a lot of these don't have good polling data because they assume it's just going to go Democrat. I think that's a mistake because it's, like I said, it's closer than the general election polls are making out to be, and something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong, especially if you look at the disagreement of all the polls. Yeah, most of them have Hillary winning in the general, but they're all over the place. Some have her winning by 3, some have her winning by 12, as we saw by, I believe, is a Monmouth. And you have, of course, the USA Today poll, which has probably been the most consistent, not all over the place poll, has Trump winning. I don't know if that correlates to it being more accurate or not. You got to be at this point, there's like everything is giving a different signal because I've talked to people from other generations, including my parents, and even they say this is the most polarized election that of their lives. And that's saying a lot because you had Reagan, Carter, you had Nixon, Kennedy, you had LBJ Goldwater, which was a nasty campaign. You had other campaigns which were pretty nasty, but this is looking like one of the most nasty campaigns in history. It's just so much mud being flung around, and it's polarizing people to the point where people don't even care what the other side has to say. And I just bring this up before I go. I've said it before, but this is exactly why we need to stop the, I guess you could call it, negative bias voting, where we're voting against somebody or something and not for something. I think we need to be for something because it's leading to the point where information has very little impact because we're playing identity politics, we're identifying as red and blue rather than just American with a specific lean toward an ideology. You know, it's fine to lean toward an ideology. What's not fine is to identify as it and wave the flag of that ideology where you will violate it even against principle, because there are times when both ideologies can be immoral and bad, and we have to start using our heads instead of screaming at each other, only looking at content parsed to us. And I'll bring up another point here too. Steven Crowder, I watched his show. He made a very, very good and nuanced point about the reason why we're so polarized, and that is because of this curated content from Facebook and Twitter and other social media. Because you have basically two types of portals. You have the split directional portals, which means you get a list of things that you could choose from, and then you click on it and then it'll bring you up another list. And then you have the basically your direct vertical portal, which is you scroll down and you scroll down and then you just click on one story after another in sequential order, is how they design things. And with both of these, you have content curated to what you want to read. And so if you're a Republican, say, or you are conservative leaning, all you're going to get are articles for conservatives or negative toward liberals or just something conservatives want, and that confirms their ideology. And with the liberal side, you're going to get the same thing. You're going to get content curated to them. And what happens is they see the off thing that disagrees with them, they thumb it down, write a negative comment, and then they don't see that kind of content again. And what you get in this election are these groups of people are now being forced together because there's just so much interest now, and there's just so much, you get polarized. Eventually, you're going to want to fight with the other side. Some people will. And you get the agitators, and then they go on the other side. And that's where all the hatred boils over, is when you get sides that are so polarized like that. So, bottom line is, we need to start being open to other ideas. We need to stop with the confirmation bias, and we need to start using our heads when we vote and stop playing identity politics. Thanks for listening. God bless.